Shri Matre Namaha.
Namaste.
Welcome, everybody. And I'm just going to mute anyone who's not muted, so we keep the distractions to a minimum. So welcome back to Decrypting You through the Lalitā Sahasranāma. And we discussed during the last class, we had a pretty detailed understanding or delving into the significance of Devi's crown. You remember that? And she's wearing the half moon or the Ashtami Chandra on her crown. And we discussed what the Ashtami Chandra refers to, which is that on that 8th Tithi or the 8th phase of the waxing moon or the waning moon, the moon appears the same, right? Now, another thing that I want to tell you about, I hope you had a chance to reflect on this. And before we move on to today's verses, one of the things that I also wanted to bring up with regard to that, the Ashtami Chandra Vibraja, Dalikastala Shobhita. So Devi wears this moon on her crown, right? Now, the moon is representative of the mind. So the moon represents the mind. The sun actually represents the light within us. And you can say the Atma, you can say the self, that is represented by the sun. And the moon, because it is a reflection, it is reflected by ourself, it is the mind, okay? Now, Devi wearing the moon in her crown is really significant because that represents universal mind. So she is the universal mind actually adorns her crown. What does that even mean, universal mind? So the universal mind is the mind of the entire creation. So this includes all the good thoughts, all the bad thoughts, all the ugly thoughts, anything that you can possibly think of, all permutations and variations of the mind, which are infinite in number, they all are represented in Devi's moon, the moon that adorns her crown. Now, there is another aspect to this, which is really a lot of what we are going to be exploring in our sadhana of the Nitya Devis, the Lalita and the Kali Nityas during our immersion, which is, even though the moon on her crown looks like it's a half moon, right, in both the waxing and waning circles, remember that the moon itself is always full. It only appears a certain way because of the angulation, 12 degrees of angulation per day, that, you know, is the angulation of the shadow, you can say, of the sun that is reflected on the moon. So the moon is always full, but here in Devi's crown, it is appearing like a half moon, which means half of it is illuminated and the other half is in the dark. So both the light and the dark aspects of the universe are carried in her crown as the universal mind. So you see, this has a very significant connotation when we talk about Devi coming into the Chidagni. She arises from the consciousness, our own consciousness. And she comes in to do the great work of the Devas, right? Deva Karya Samudyata. And then when she destroys Bhandasura, she doesn't actually destroy him. So there, if you remember, there is a backstory to Bhandasura, which is, you remember that time when Parvati really had it in her mind to marry Shiva. And so she was meditating on him and trying to distract him. But Shiva is this ultimate yogi. He's completely absorbed in meditation. So in order to get him to notice her, the luminaries, Brahma and Vishnu and the others, they send Kamadeva to distract him. And Kamadeva, he shoots an arrow of desire into Shiva's heart. And so Shiva opens his eyes and sees this beautiful Parvati in front of him and has a stir of desire within him. But it's Shiva. If such a thing happens to us, we would be completely lost in the desire. But Shiva, is the ultimate yogi. He's like, wait a minute. What just happened here? Who did this to me? And he looks around and sees Kamadeva lurking in the shadows. And he opens his third eye and he incinerates Kamadeva into ashes. Okay, now here's this pile of ashes, and Kamadeva's wife, Rati Devi, she is like completely heartbroken. So she goes back to Shiva and then Parvati after they get married, and that's a whole another story which I will narrate some other time. But Rati goes to Shiva and says, please revive him. And Shiva is the most compassionate one. And he says, okay, that time will come. And meanwhile, what happens is, after Shiva and Parvati get married, one of Shiva's attendants, one of his devotees, he looks at this pile of ashes and with his mantras and his own powers, he creates a boy out of this pile of ashes. And this boy, he then teaches him the Shiva mantra. And so this boy becomes really learned in the practice of the Shiva mantra, the Shiva Panchakshari mantra. And one day, Shiva sees him being such a great devotee, and he's impressed. And he says, what do you want, my son? And this boy made of ashes, he says, well, I want power, of course. I mean, if Shiva came to you and said, what would you like? You think you're going to be asking for liberation? I highly doubt it. Most of us will be asking for world dominion, okay, for power. So it is with this kid, this boy, and he says, I want ultimate power. I want nobody to kill me. And Shiva says, that's not possible, but I will make you invincible for a very long time. It will be a limited period of time, X thousands of years, but still you will be invincible. And when he grants that boon, Brahma is listening to this, the creator, and he says, Banda, 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 Banda. Says, oh no, this is bad news. So that creature, that boy created out of Kamadeva's ashes, comes to be known as Bhandasura. Okay, so this is the backstory. So when Devi comes back, right, she arises out of the fire pit, the Chidagni, in order to destroy Bhandasura. She doesn't destroy him. She doesn't annihilate him. She knows where this comes from, because remember, the Ashtami Chandra is in her crown. She carries the universal mind. And so she turns Bhandasura back into Kamadeva. She restores him into his original form. So when we invoke Devi, she comes in with this Ashtami Chandra, and she turns us back into our original form, full of nectar. She restores us, and she puts the juice back into us. And that is because of this incredible nama that we see here, which is Ashtami Chandra Vipraja. She holds all viewpoints in her universal mind. Nothing is exclusive. Nothing is excluded. There is nothing that is outside of Devi's mind. Okay, so moon represents the mind. And today we'll see that's going to come up again. Okay, so we now move on to the next verse. Okay, Vadana Smara Mangalya Grihatorana Chillika, Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha, Chalanmi Nabhalochana. So, Vadana Smara Mangalya, Grihatorana Chillika. Vadana, now, remember the first part had to do with the Dhyana shlokas, and then the arising of Devi in the Chidagni. And then in this segment, basically, we are going to see the description of Devi's form. So imagine you're sitting at this fire pit. You have just invoked this goddess, and you simply are unable to describe her beauty. You know, it is said in my language, it is said that 2 eyes are not enough. You know, when we want to describe great beauty, we say 2 eyes are not enough. So here, imagine you're sitting at the fire pit and you can't take in Devi's whole form, all at once. You have to look at her part by part by part. So you're looking at her from top to bottom, and you have just looked at her crown. You've just looked at the moon. You've looked at her forehead. And now you're just slowly coming down. And you say, my gosh, her face, Vadana. It reminds me, Vadana Smara, her face reminds me of this incredible auspiciousness. Mangalya. Mangalya means auspicious. But what kind of auspiciousness? It says it's like the portal to the world of beauty, the portal to auspiciousness. So griha means the home, torana means portal. Now, in Indian homes, a lot of Indian homes, we have this thing called torana or toran, which is at the entrance of the home will usually hang like a garland or mango leaves or whatever, which is basically saying this is the portal into this home. And here, that's basically what is being described here. Of what though? Like which part of Devi's face? Well, her eyebrows, Chillika. Her eyebrows are like garlands at the entrance of a home. What kind of home? Not an ordinary home, the home of auspiciousness. The house, the portal to auspiciousness is decorated by her beautiful eyebrows. So Vadana has another meaning, and that is the apex of a triangle. So you can imagine then, Vadana Smara. Smara also means actually this Shringara, erotic rasa, erotic kind of a experience. The apex of a triangle. Vadana Smara, Mangalya, Griha Torana Chillika. So my Paramaguru, Guruji, Amritanandanatha Saraswati, he describes this nama as saying, well, it is a portal, it is a portal into both the house or the home of auspiciousness, of desire, as well as this apex of the triangle, which is like her yoni, which is the portal of creation, of creative power. For who? For Shiva, of course, but for all of her sadhakas. So many hidden layers of meaning in this. So here we are looking at Devi's face and saying, wow, I can't take my eyes off her eyebrows. They remind me of this torana, these festoons, these beautiful garlands that are placed at the portal of auspiciousness, of desire, of beauty, of creation. Imagine what Shiva would feel if he were to look at her eyebrows. Right? He would be so taken in by simply her eyebrows. So imagine the degree of beauty of Devi here. Okay. So, and Another thing is, if you look at any classical forms of dance, you'll see that eyebrows are huge in trying to convey a particular sentiment, a particular emotion. A lot of times, merely by the way people, furrow their eyebrows, raise their eyebrow, you can tell a lot, right? You can see what's going on with them. They don't need to do anything. It's just like, they've already said a whole, everything that needs to be said has been said in simply the raising of one eyebrow. So imagine Devi's expressions. She doesn't need to do anything, right? She raises her eyebrows or she moves them in a particular way, and the whole universe moves with it. Because that's her power, right? So, Vadana Smaramangalya, Griha Torana Chillika. And now you are, you continue to be looking at her. You can't go any further down. And then you have to describe a little bit more of her to yourself. You're registering all this. Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha Chalan Meena Bhalochana. And you're saying, well, her face, this incredible, beautiful face, right? Vaktra means face. Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha. Lakshmi is the goddess of great fortune. And Parivaha means it's like a pool, a pool or a channel of water. Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha, Chalan means to move, something that's moving. Chalan Meenabha. Meena is fish. Abha means like. Fish-like. Lochana means eyes. So it's very, very common to have descriptions of deities' eyes as being fish-like. So those of you who came with me to Madurai know of that goddess as Meenakshi, the one who has eyes like, eyes that look like, are shaped like a fish. So because they have such a beautiful shape, and so when you say fish-like eyes, it's actually a big compliment. And so here we are saying Devi's face is like a pool of great good fortune. Okay, so it's like a calm pool in which there are these eyes that move like a fish. So her face is very calm, but her eyes are constantly moving. And not just moving like fish. If you look at fish, they move really gracefully, right? They have, that's a very, like a very graceful and yet physics-wise extremely harmonious movement of fish in water. And they create these very, synchronized kinds of waves and ripples in the water when they move, right? So it is said that Devi's eyes are constantly watching her creation. And so it moves, according to the creation that is emanating from her. Another way of looking at it is, as her eyes move, so is creation being formed and destroyed in all directions. Wherever she looks, creation and the universe is expanding in that direction. And so one of the ways I think about this is her eyes remind me of Bhuvaneshwari. Bhuvaneshwari, the fourth Mahavidya, right? But when you look at Bhuvaneshwari, wherever she looks, creation is expanding in that direction, because Bhuvaneshwari represents the great principle of space. So she holds the entire creation in her eyes, right? So Devi in this nama, I think of her as Bhuvaneshwari. So, Vaktra Lakshmi Parivaha Chalan Meena Bhalochana. And then we have the next line. Nava champaka pushpabha nasa danda virajita. This is such a beautiful, the next two lines are so gorgeous. Nava means fresh or new. Champaka is a flower. So those of you who are from India know this flower. It's one of the most fragrant flowers that you can actually find. I don't know if one of you can find a picture and post it in the chat for those who don't know what a champaka is. But it's actually extremely fragrant and only available at certain times in the year. And it's a very graceful kind of a flower as well. So it has a beautiful shape. And it is said here in this verse that Devi's nose is like a freshly blooming champaka flower. Not any flower, mind you, a champaka flower. Now, this verse actually, or this nama, has really a great non-dual meaning. Of all the senses, the nose is the only one that can smell itself. The eyes can't really see themselves, right? The eyes can't see themselves. The ears can't really hear themselves. And you can say, well, the tongue can taste itself. Perhaps, but you still need to go to different parts of the tongue in order to feel it. And you can say, well, skin can feel itself. But again, you would need two in order to make that happen. But of all the senses, it's as if the nose is one that can smell its own self, its own fragrance. And then it's such an important sense, actually. If you've had COVID and you've lost the sense of smell, you know what that's like, right? So the sense of smell actually keeps you very grounded in creation. It's very hard to even taste when you can't smell. So another really important aspect of this, a non-dual aspect, is that when you think about the sense of smell, or any sense actually, it is that reflection or meditation on the sense of smell will easily take you into this meditative kind of a stance where the separation between the sense of smell and the nose disappears. The sense of smell and the awareness in which the sense of smell appears disappears. And all you are left with is awareness as your true nature. The separation between the sense object and the sense organ disappears. The sense organ and awareness disappears, and all that is left is awareness. Because it already makes it happen through this non-separation of the nose and the sense of smell. So when we say Devi's nose is like the champaka flower, not only because it's so beautiful and fragrant, and remember, you can also give it the other meaning, that it is her nose that gives fragrance to the champaka, right? Like the flowers in her hair. So, Nava champaka pushpabha nasa danda virajita. Tara kanti tiraskari nasa bharana bhasura. So, Tara means stars. Kanti means brightness. Tiraskari. Tiraskari means surpassing. Surpassing or outshining or outperforming. Nasa is nose. Abharana means jewel. Bhasura means radiant. Okay, bright, radiant. So basically what it's saying here is that the nose stud that Devi is wearing, it outperforms or outshines the stars in the sky. Okay. Now every nama has multiple meanings. So, Tara Kanti Tiraskari, Nasa Bharana Bhasura. If you meditated on Devi's nose stud, you'll see that it's not of a uniform color. It's not of a uniform kind of a hue. Every time you meditate on Devi, you'll actually see her nose stud in a different color if you meditate on Devi's form. And each time that will tell you what is going on in your own mind. That whatever is shown in that vision, in that meditation, can be a reflection of your own mind. It's like, what am I actually thinking about? And where do I need to be focusing? So if you have, for instance, you're meditating on Devi, and the light or the radiance that comes out of her nose stud is the one that illumines the mind. Because it is the one that is illuminating all the stars. All the light bodies of the universe derive their sparkle from Devi's nose stud. So it outperforms all of the stars in the sky. And when we are meditating, it is the one that illuminates our own mind. And so whatever the contents of your mind and your awareness of it is coming from the radiance of her nose stud. Isn't that fabulous? So again, you're sitting there and you are looking at Devi from top to bottom. And these are all the revelations coming to you. You're looking at her nose stud and thinking, wow, now I know how I become aware of the contents of my mind. It is because of the sparkling jewel that she's wearing as her nose stud. So, Tara Kanti Tiraskari, Nasa Bharana Bhasura. And then we have Kadamba Manjari Klipta Karnapura Manohara. So, Kadamba means, again, another type of flowers, another type of flower that Devi is wearing in her hair, but she's wearing it in a particular way. Manjari means it appears to be sprouting from behind her ears and arranged totally around her ears. And when you look at these flowers that, every time you see a picture of Devi, do you see that, you can actually see some flowers behind her ears, right? That's what is being described here. Kadamba Manjari Klipta Karnapura Manohara, it says. So when you look at those flowers, Manohara, Mana means mind, Hara means to lose. So if you look at these flowers behind Devi's ears, you're going to lose your mind. Right? And in a very good way. It means your mind just stops when you look at Devi's ears and the flowers surrounding her ears. Now, what have we done here? What do you think we have done here in the last few namas? What are we describing? The senses. Right? So we've been talking about her eyes, we talked about the nose, now we're talking about the ears. What takes the mind away? The important, for those of you who are Sri Vidya Upasakas, Sri Vidya. Vidya refers to the mantra of a feminine deity. Mantra, sound, is the primordial mode of expression in the universe, because sound or vibration is the key. In many traditions, not just this tradition, right? In the beginning, there was the Word was with God, the Word is God, was God, is God, so it is here. Vibration is, or sound is, the subtle form of the deity. And it is through mantra that we lose our minds. The mind stops with mantra. The mind stops and the mantra takes us beyond the mind. And so it takes us where? It takes us beyond the years into the flowers around the years. It takes us beyond the years, again, referring to, remember what I told you in the last class, flowers also represent our sanskaras, our deep-rooted conditioning. So mantra japa or mantra practice takes us beyond the years into those deep-rooted vasanas, the sanskaras, and works directly on them in order to take us beyond the senses altogether. So it's a transcendental kind of an experience to look at Devi's flowers, because in simply looking at those flowers, we become manohara. We lose our minds, which is a great thing. Right now, you're sitting there and you're looking at her eyebrows. They have taken you into this auspiciousness. And when you are looking at her eyes, you are feeling your own expansion in the movement of her eyes, because your microcosm reflects the macrocosm. And so when you're looking at her eyes, you yourself are expanding. And in this expansion, the fragrance of that expansion has become one with you. And the mantra has taken you beyond creation altogether, and you have become both immanent and transcendent. It's a meditative experience to look at Devi. Another important aspect of this Chalanmi Labha Lochana. I don't know how many of you have seen this extremely popular painting of Kamakshi. Actually, at the Sri Vidya temple, where we were just recently, there's a huge painting of Kamakshi. It's a very popular one. And again, if one of you find it, please post it in chat. It's an old painting, and it was rendered by a Sri Vidya Upasaka. I forget his name now, but it's probably many of you have it in your homes. The specialty of this painting, by the way, is that wherever you go in the room, it's like Devi's looking at you. It's painted in such a way. And there are, many paintings like this. Even, a lot of famous artists have created works of art like this, where wherever you go in the room, the subject follows you. But it's quite eerie, actually, in this Kamakshi's painting, because her eyes are huge. They are fish-like. And wherever you go, she follows you. And you'll see that everybody, if there are 100 people in the room, everybody will feel like she is looking at them. Have you had this experience where you're listening to something from somebody and you think they were addressing my problem exactly? Have you felt that? It's like, I needed to hear this. You were talking directly to me today. This is what happens in Devi sadhana. You suddenly feel like she's talking only to you. She's looking only at you in her fish-like movements, in water, in calm water. And you expand in that karuna kataksha, that compassionate gaze of Devi. So it's this whole description that we are going to continue in the next class is a love story, an incredible love story between the sadhaka and the deity. And you can see why this is such an important part of the Lalitā Sahasranāma. It is the first part, actually, because that's how sadhana is. You have to first fall in love with the deity. You can't come to the deity with, let me tell you how many books I've read about this. That's very dry. It doesn't open your heart. But on the other hand, you're looking at her and you are in tears. You're just melting in this beauty and this love for her. The knowledge will follow. In fact, you don't even have to have words for the knowledge. You don't even have to be able to describe what you're experiencing. It's not necessary. In this love story, in this relationship of communion with the deity, you become the greatest jnani. Become the greatest, wise one. In madness, you become wise. In this madness of love, you become wise. In this insanity. And so the Bhagavad Gita actually is a text of bhakti. People think it's a text of karma. It's not. It's a text of bhakti. And this is what we're exploring in the Bhagavad Gita classes. Bhagavan says again and again, come to me and I'll take care of you. Just love me and I'll take care of you. And then he doesn't even say love me, actually. He says, open yourself and see that you are loved. I love you. Open to my love, and that's enough. And so here, Devi's description is the same way, right? She is the embodiment of Lakshmi, of love, of abundance and beauty. All we need to do is open to it. And this description of a little at a time of her beauty, going from top to bottom, is like you're opening your heart a little by little by little. Okay, so I suggest you meditate on Devi's form. Take time every day to sit with that. See what her nose stud will show you about yourself. Okay, so I'll stop here and take any questions. Any questions, anyone? Yeah, these are the pictures of Devi. In the chat, you can see Devi's eyes. Susan posted a close-up of Devi's face from the Rajarajeshwari Pitham in Rush. And you can see what Meena Lochana means. Any questions? So keep practicing, keep listening, keep chanting, and I will see you soon in a few
Hello.
weeks.
Is it too late for a hi? Is it too late for a question?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Lily.
Hi.
I have come across Kamashi only a week ago or something, whilst I was doing a Lakshmi sadhana. This form I wasn't familiar with, but I instantly fell in love with her, and it's just really powerful. Like it's like blossoming of my heart, and then I've just come across Devi Puram, and everything kind of started to come in. And I don't know, like, I'm really connected to Shri Yantra, like I draw it on a daily basis, etc. So I understand the connection, but it's kind of, I don't know if it, even if it is a question, but throwing myself out there, because it feels like a new path open to me in a way, although the same path, but just wanted to throw it out there to see what you pick up from that.
Well, this is how, Devi works. She calls you to her. And so the Sri Yantra is Lalitā Devi. And Lalitā Devi in her sound form is the mantra, which we call the Panchadashi mantra or the Panchadashakshari mantra. And Lalitā Devi in her abstract and her geometric form is the Sri Yantra. And in her even more abstract form is what we call Kamakala. And that's the pendant I'm wearing. It's called Kamakala. And in another subtlest form, she is also known as Kundalini. So she is all of these different forms. And she presents to each of us in one of her forms. So sometimes we may be called to her by a mantra. Sometimes we are called to her by your experience. Sometimes we fall in love with the Sri Yantra or the Sri Chakra and we can't explain it. It's like, why am I so drawn to this? And in every case, it's Devi actually drawing you to her and saying, come to me, because, you have clearly been with her before, you have been on the path before, and she's reminding you, come back to me. So it's beautiful. I'm glad you're here. And yeah, welcome. Any other questions?
There's one other question.
Yes,
that came in through direct message. Does the mother wound, for example, a trauma from an abusive mother, differ from the Anavamala?
That is a very, very important question. And this issue of a mother wound is very important to address, I think, in these goddess traditions. Because sometimes when we call the goddess mother, and we have had a mother trauma or a mother wound, she won't appeal to us if we think of her only as a mother. And it's not true that all mothers are loving, compassionate, accepting. Isn't that true? Many are not, because we are all flawed, right? And so this is why in my understanding, I didn't come to Devi thinking of her as mother. Not because of any particular trauma or anything. I didn't want to box her into one particular role. Because, as I said, she has the Ashtami Chandra, right? She is all light and dark. So she's everything. And so Arnavamala is the fundamental sense of lack that each of us has simply by being part of creation. It's not necessarily related to any trauma. First of all, there are two aspects to this. One is trauma is universal. We're all traumatized. It's just a degree, it's the degree that differs, but we're all traumatized. Being born is traumatic. But Arnavamala refers to the fundamental sense of lack, which comes from all of us, whoever we are, wherever we come from. We all have the sense that there's something fundamentally missing. And we're all trying to pursue something in order to kind of fill that hole. Whatever it is that we're doing, whether it is in relationships or in careers or in whatever we pursue, or even in spirituality, we are all trying to, fill that gap or that hole. And that is known as the Anavamala. And that is because fundamentally we are divine. We are an aspect of Devi. And because that is not our experience in our day-to-day life, it results in a kind of fissuring of our consciousness. Because on a very deep fundamental level, we know that we are much more than this. but we don't have language for it. We don't have a way to express it, or actually we don't even have a way to realize it fully because of all these deep conditionings, the sanskaras that we have. That sense of lack is known as anavamala. And the anavamala is the one that gives rise to you and me. Me versus you, us versus them, all kinds of dualistic kinds of fissurings, they come from the anavamala, and that mala is known as the mahiya mala. The sense of separateness, of being unique and separate from everything else in the world. And this mala, the anava mala giving rise to the mahiya mala, makes us take credit and blame for everything that we do. So taking responsibility is not the same as taking credit or blame. Two different things. But we take credit and blame for everything that we do. I did this, I got this, I didn't do that, I didn't get that, I'm ashamed, I have regret, or I become prideful, I have whatever. That sense of doership or volition is known as karma mala. So these are the fundamental malas, or mala means dirt. So, dirt seems horrible as a word. It's a limitation. Okay, so anava mala is not mother wound. Mother wound contributes to that sense of deficiency, but the sense of deficiency is universal. Being born as a limited being results in the anavamala. So on the path to realization, on the path to liberation, the anavamala is the last to go. First, it's the karma mala that goes, and then the sense of separation, and finally the anavamala. Because removal of the anavamala means you become her. You become one with Shakti and Shiva. So I hope that clarifies your question. Any other questions?
Can I pop in to ask a follow-up question from that? So when you're conscious of taking credit and blaming, and it's becoming like it's right in front of you all the time, and it's becoming really something that you really don't want to do. And for me, the only way really out of it, what you were talking in the beginning, is losing the mind in the mantra or yantra or somewhere where it is like the heart is flowing and knows the truth. So in that aspect, like, does that mean that I am moving away from it? Because it's showing more in my life, if you like. Sometimes it just blows up in my face.
Yeah, it could be. But that is the whole point of karma yoga. Karma yoga is about that karma mala and working on that. And that is to attribute all of your life to the divine and say, and again, it's not a sense of giving up responsibility. You still take responsibility for your actions, but you stop taking credit or blame. And that is the process of becoming more and more selfless, lack of self-interest, right? And we'll examine that in a future section where Devi is called Nirmama. She has no self-interest. And that's a description of a yogi who has gone beyond karma mala. And you can't develop that if you have attachments to anything. So dispassion and discernment are the two important qualities to cultivate in order to develop that. So you can't be attached to anything in life. Not having attachment does not mean you don't have love. Again, there are many subtle differences there. In fact, the more non-attached you become, the more love there is. So it's a process. But yeah, that, becoming more and more aware of mantra and more surrendered to her as being the supreme doer of everything is one way to work with that. Okay. Yes, she's also called Kadamba Vanavasini. Kadamba, because she lives in Kadamba Vanavasini, very literally means she's the one who lives amongst in the Kadamba Vana, in the forest of the Kadambas. And we'll talk about the importance of Kadamba, what that even means when we come to that nama. Okay, so thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. And we'll meet again soon. Keep invoking Devi, keep meditating on her, and we'll talk soon. Shri Matre Namaha.